Hi, today in this video, we will talk about the light reaction in photosynthesis. First, what is photosynthesis? I'm sure you're already familiar to this, so we will just have a brief discussion. Photosynthesis is a process that converts solar energy into chemical energy. It uses light energy to convert carbon dioxide and water, which are the reactants, into glucose and oxygen, which are the products. Directly or indirectly, photosynthesis nourishes almost the entire living world. Photos means light, and synthesis means putting together in Greek. Now, photosynthesis is a complex series of reactions that can be summarized as the following equation. 6 carbon dioxide plus 12 water plus light energy to C6H12O6, the simple sugar or glucose, plus 6 oxygen gas plus 6 water, wherein left side are the reactants and in the right side are the products. So, how does it exactly works? First, the sun will act as the source of energy, and the reactant water will enter the plant through the roots, and plant will pick up the minerals from the water, while the reactant carbon dioxide will enter through the stomata of the leaves, and oxygen will be released also through the stomata. Now here's the example of how carbon dioxide enter and oxygen exit through the stomata. Now let's move on to the chloroplast. Chloroplast is the organelle that carries out photosynthesis. Chlorophyll is the light-absorbing pigment in the thylakoid within the chloroplast. It absorbs red and blue light, but reflects only green light. That is why most plants appear as green. The chloroplast has the outer membrane, intermembrane space, and inner membrane, while the stroma is the fluid inside the chloroplast. So, this is the thylakoid, and there is where we can find chlorophyll. One stack or group of thylakoids is called as granum, while the multiple groups of granum is called as grana. It's just simply the plural of granum, and lumen is the fluid inside the thylakoid. There are two stages of photosynthesis. First, light reaction, the photo part. It happens in the thylakoid. Second, Calvin cycle, or also called as dark reaction, the synthesis part, and happens inside the stroma. Light reaction, or the light-dependent reaction, because it can proceed without the help of light. What will happen here is, light will act first and split or oxidize water, then oxygen will release to become a byproduct. NADP+ will pick up the electrons from water and become reduced into NADPH. Now the energy from light is used to make ATP from ADP plus P or phosphate. By the way, the meaning of ADP is adenosine diphosphate. So from the word di, it means it has two phosphates, and ATP means adenosine triphosphate. And from the word tri, it has 3 phosphates. There are two kinds of processes in light reaction, the linear electron flow and cyclic electron flow. Linear electron flow is the primary pathway. It involves both photosystems, PS1 and PS2. It produces ATP and NADPH using light energy. Photosystems happens inside the thylakoid. There are two types of photosystems. Photosystem 2 or PS2 functions first and is best at absorbing a wavelength of 680 nanometers. Reaction center chlorophyll A of PS2 is called P680. Second is photosystem 1 or PS1. It's best at absorbing a wavelength of 700 nanometers and its reaction center chlorophyll A is called P700. Cyclic electron flow uses only photosystem 1 and produces ATP but not NADPH. No oxygen is released and generates surplus ATP, satisfying the higher demand in the Calvin cycle. So we are here now in electron transport chain in the thylakoid membrane to discuss the linear electron flow. What will happen here is first, light will strike to the pigment molecules in the chlorophyll and excite the electrons all the way to the primary acceptor. Then the electrons will go to a mobile electron carrier called plastoquinone. Now, since chlorophyll lost its electrons and needs to be replenished, it will take the electrons from water by splitting water into oxygen gas and 2 hydrogen ions. Water will then lose 2 electrons to give in photosystem 2 in the primary acceptor. Next is plastoquinone is going to carry electrons to cytochrome complex, and as the electrons pass through that complex, what will going to happen next is it will going to pump protons from the stroma, that is from the outside of the thylakoid, into the lumen or the inner thylakoid space. So, the proton concentration in the stroma is going to decrease, while the proton concentration inside the thylakoid is going to increase, producing a concentration gradient. Then, the electrons will continue the flow from cytochrome complex to a particular peripheral protein plastocyanin, which is a copper-containing protein. We'll then going to transfer the electrons to photosystem 1. From here, the electron have lost some of its energy, and so the electrons will gain its energy again by being struck by the photon of light in photosystem 1. So after the electrons are struck by a photon of light, what will happen next is the electron will get excited and will be going to the primary acceptor. Next is the electrons will go to another peripheral protein called ferredoxin, an iron-sulfur protein, and that's going to carry the electrons to NADP reductase. Now, NADP reductase is a peripheral protein, but it's also an enzyme, from the word ACE. This enzyme is going to reduce NADP+. So the electrons are going to meet up with NADP+. Once NADP+ accept those electrons along with the hydrogen ion, it's going to reduce into NADPH. So this reaction also reduces the hydrogen ion concentration in the stroma, which will favor the production of ATP soon. So because the hydrogen ion on the inner thylakoid space increase, and there's just little hydrogen ion on the stroma, what will happen is the hydrogen ions, due to this concentration gradient, hydrogen ions will going flow to an enzyme called ATP synthase, in the process called chemiosmosis. As those hydrogen ions flow through that enzyme, that protein will rotate in a way that it's going to combine ADP and phosphate to make ATP. So that's how linear electron flow produces ATP and NADPH using light energy. Next is the second process in light reaction, the cyclic electron flow. What will happen here is light will strike and gonna make the electrons excited all the way to the primary acceptor and go back to the peripheral protein called ferredoxin. Next is they will go to the cytochrome complex and produce ATP. After that, they will continue the journey to a particular peripheral protein plastocyanin, and then electrons will go end up in photosystem 1 again, and the cycle will just continue. So, we can see here that in cyclic electron flow, it only produces ATP. So, that is the light reaction in photosynthesis. And we can say that its products are oxygen, NADPH, and ATP. And the reactants are water, NADP+, and ATP plus phosphate. That's all. Thank you for watching.